Okay, so in this lesson, you will learn how to find the measure of a central angle, the circumference of a circle, and how to find the arc length of a circle. Okay, so just some terms that you're already familiar with, okay? Circle is named by its center. A central angle is an angle whose vertex is the center, so the vertex, the middle point there. So angle APC we would call as one central angle. A diameter goes from end to end of the circle through the center. A radius is a segment from the center to any point on the circle. Okay, so terms again that you're familiar with, and now they're defined and you can see them. All right, sections of the circumference are called arcs. There are minor arcs, major arcs, and a semicircle. Okay, so check out how they're defined. A minor arc is equal to the measure of its corresponding central angle. A major arc is the minor arc subtracted from 360. And then we know a semicircle is half of a circle. So if we think about what that angle would be, well, half of a circle would be 180 degrees, okay? And notice that a semicircle is formed with a diameter of the circle. And we'll be able to discuss these more in class, but I am going to go through an example of how to find these measures of arcs. Okay, so the measure of arc WX. So look at what we have here. We have a circle. Circle A, okay, the center is at A. I have the two central angles here because the central angle is formed from that center of the circle. So let's find the other pieces that we need. If the measure of angle WAZ is 90 degrees, and I know that what's next to it, ZAY, they can't form a linear pair because I already know that that's angles 103 degrees. Well, my linear pair would be here. So the measure of angle WAX would be 90 degrees as well. And then to find what this measure would be, XAY, I know that a circle forms 360 degrees. So if this semicircle is 180, then you can verify for me that the measure of that angle would be 77 degrees. So now let's use this information. Okay, so the measure of arc WX would be the measure of the central angle that's formed. So here's WX, and the measure of the central angle, so the angle from the center of the circle, is 90 degrees. The measure of angle XY, so here's XY, okay, it's this arc that's formed here. The central angle of XY is that angle formed at the center, so the measure of arc XY would be 77 degrees. And then if I look at from W to Y, what would the measure from arc W to Y be? Well, look at the central angle that's formed. So I would add 90 plus 77 degrees. Okay, so this would give me 167 degrees for WY. All right, so now let's move on to the major arcs. Okay, W to X to Z. So starting at W, I have to travel through X and I end up at Z. So the major arc measures more than 180 degrees. So if I know that the missing piece here is 90, I can take 360. So I can take 360 and I'll subtract the piece that is not included from W to Z. So the measure of that arc would be 270 degrees. All right. Let's look at the next one. Y through Z to W. So Y through Z to W. So when I look at this arc, I know that the two central arcs that are, central angles that are included are the 103 and the 90 degree angle. So what's the measure of this arc? 193 degrees. Okay, X through Z to Y. Let me erase this. X through Z to Y. So again, here, this will be easier to take the whole circle, which is 360, and I'm going to subtract the piece that is not included. Okay, so I'm going to subtract that central angle of 77 degrees. All right, so I have 3 here. Borrow, borrow. So this gives me 8. So 283 degrees would be the measure of arc X, Z, Y. Okay, for homework, I would like you to try numbers 10 through 12. Okay, the video is not finished just yet, but try those, pause the video, try those 3 on your own. Okay, circumference. Circumference you've been learning since pre-algebra. Measures the distance around the entire outside of the circle. So 2 formulas. You can use pi times the diameter of the circle. The diameter goes through the center. Or we know that the diameter is 2 times the radius. Okay, so each half is a radii. So 2 radii give us the diameter. All right, find the circumference of each circle. Leave your answer in terms of pi. So what this means is we're going to have pi in the answer. You won't approximate that with 3.14. So if I look at this, my radius is 3, which makes my diameter 6. So the circumference is 6 pi. Circle number 2, we know the diameter is 9, so my circumference is 9 pi. For number 3, if my radius is 3.5, I double that to get my diameter. So 3.5 times 2 would give me 7. So my circumference is 7 pi. So leaving it in terms of pi keeps your answers very neat, very simple, okay, and there's no need to approximate. Okay, arc length. So we've looked at the measure of the arc, okay, and that's just equal to the central angle. But now the arc length gives us what this actual length would be equal to. So we can't really think about it as getting a ruler because it's curved, but if I were to use some measuring tool, I want to know what the length of that little piece would be. So arc length is a part of the circumference. What part am I looking at? The central angle divided by the entire measure of the circle, which is always 360, and then I multiply it by the circumference of the circle. Okay, so let's first find the circumference of circle R. Okay, center is at R. I know the radius is 5 centimeters. I double that to get a diameter of 10, and therefore my circumference is 10 pi. We're just going to set these up. We'll use the calculator in class tomorrow. All right, so to find the length of arc SV. So here's SV. SV has a central angle of 30 degrees. So my arc length would be the central angle divided by 360, and then I multiply that by 10 pi. Okay, we're just going to set these up. We'll evaluate them in class tomorrow. Don't worry if you don't have a calculator. UV, so the length of arc from U to V. So from U to V, that's a 90-degree angle, plus the 30 degrees here. So that would give me 120 degrees as a central angle, divided by the 360, and then I multiply that by the circumference of the circle. The circumference of the circle never changes. It's always going to be 10 pi. Okay, the length of arc SUT. So S through U to T. Well, SUT, notice that that's a semicircle. Okay, so what's the measure of the central angle in a semicircle? 180 degrees divided by 360, and then times the circumference, which is 10 pi. Arc UTV. I'll erase this. And what I'll do, this is where we'll begin tomorrow. Okay, so this is not homework. Your homework is on the previous slide. Okay, finish numbers 10 through 12 on finding the measure of the arc. And then in class, we'll continue with 19 through 21.